Do you know what's in your pocket? In our pockets, most of us carry at least a cell phone, not to mention the tablet or the laptop computer we also use every day. However, most of us don't even realize the large amount of energy, raw materials, and processes that were necessary to produce these and other kind of electronic goods. Every time we put a cell phone in our pockets, we are carrying more than 50 different materials that include plastics, gold, silver, copper, iron, and a rare but important metal called coltan. Coltan is short for Colombite tantalite, and even though it was discovered in the 19th century, some of its most impressive characteristics were only discovered 25 years ago. Niobium and tantalum are extracted from the coltan ore. Tantalum is heat resistant and capable of holding high electric charges. This is why our cell phones today are so powerful, thin, and light. And this is also the reason for the increases in the demand for coltan, which came along with increases in the international prices and some other undesired impacts. I have had the opportunity to learn about these impacts, and I want to share with you a life cycle analysis of coltan. And the properties of coltan have changed the way electronics are designed, produced, and also changed the way we communicate, because they have put loads of information in our hands no matter where we are. However, the extraction of these minerals have brought also unexpected consequences that are rarely noticed by the final users. That's why it's really important that we all, as consumers, learn about the externalities and consequences of the entire life cycle of the products we purchase, because along with our amazing electronics, we carry also their impacts on the environment and other people. A simplified life cycle of coltan starts when it is extracted from the earth. Then it is traded locally near the mining sites, then sold to international traders, transformed into niobium and tantalum, manufactured into tantalum capacitors for electronics, then assembled into cell phones, shipped and sold to the final users all over the world, and then the users enjoy them for a while until they're broken or replaced by a newer phone. And most of the discarded cell phones end up their days in landfills all over the world, but locally there's an increased amount of recycled cell phones and recycled materials coming from the old cell phones. The first two steps in the life cycle of coltan are the mining and local trade. These two processes have the most of the impacts, especially the negative impacts and externalities. Let's first see where they are produced. Traditionally, the mines of coltan were located in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in the middle of Africa. And probably you have heard about this. There's a lot of social conflicts in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the mining of coltan has fueled these conflicts: civil wars, violence, also slavery, child labor. So in 2010, the U.S. Established a law that required that all the coltan purchased by the United States, the American companies, were or was declared conflict-free. It was good at first, but then as coltan was discovered in other places like Australia, the production of coltan with stronger laws and really strict regulations was happening mostly there. Most of the coltan came from Australia for a while, until it was discovered in South America. Really large amounts of coltan were discovered in countries like Colombia, Venezuela, and mostly Brazil. The mines of coltan in Brazil are located in the Amazon, and currently Brazil is the most important producer of coltan in the world. In North America, Canada is the most important producer, and we know there are some coltan reserves in the United States, but at the current prices, they are not feasible to exploit. In the middle of Africa, near the border with the Democratic Republic of Congo, Rwanda is now an important producer. However, since it's a really small country in the middle of Africa, and due to its vicinity with the Democratic Republic of Congo, it's very likely that most of their production is not actually from their own territory, but from the Democratic Republic of Congo, which means it is still a conflict mineral. As I told you earlier, the two first steps in the life cycle of coltan have the most of the impacts, of the negative impacts. These are some facts about coltan mining and local trade. The most important thing is that most of the coltan extractions all over the world are artisanal, which means that some guys with shovels will remove the earth, remove materials, and then wash the materials, and then they have to carry heavy loads on their backs until they can reach the local traders, and these local traders sell the materials to those companies that can process the material to obtain the tantalum and the niobium. One of the problems with these local trades is that these materials are not openly traded. That means not a lot of regulations are happening near the mines. The prices are not regulated. There's a lot of fluctuation in the prices of coltan, and most of the time there's a lot of inequality. And this secrecy in the prices and the trading process fuels this inequality. Usually, the middlemen will get a lot of money, and the people doing the actual job in the mines will not receive a lot of money. Coltan is considered a conflict mineral, and in a lot of countries, like countries in South America, like Colombia, is happening something similar that has happened in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where there is violence and poverty, and people are pushed into the mines to get the coltan because there is nothing else to do in most of these places. It's also affecting children, it's also affecting women, it's also affecting a lot of people, and the social conflicts are getting fueled by this process and the money of the coltan. And there are also guerrillas and a lot of things happening there, so it's not good for the society or local societies and the local communities. If we think about the three E's of sustainability, we think about the environment, the economy, and equity, we can see that the extraction of coltan is very profitable. It produces a lot of money, but this money seldom gets to the miners. Usually the middlemen and the big companies are getting all the money, and there are also negative impacts on the environment that can be local or global. There are also negative impacts for the people, health, and social impacts, and these things can be local and also can also reach international levels. So as we can see, there is not a lot of balance, so this is not a very sustainable way to obtain these materials. Among these externalities, we can see that there is environmental damage. We can see deforestation because people had to remove the plants, the forests near the mines. There is also problems with endangered species. We have heard about how the gorillas got killed in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And the production of these minerals also produces pollution of the water, reduction of ecosystem services, and this can be a problem globally because with deforestation we bring climate change, and we are eliminating the ecosystems like the Amazon forest that can buffer the impacts of the of the extreme weathers and climate change. Among the social issues, we have inequality. We have a lot of inequality. We have health issues because there is not industrial safety or anything else happening near the mines. We see slavery, we see child labor, we see also that people have their food safety compromised, and this comes along with poverty and violence. And sadly enough, this poverty and violence is what keeps the prices low enough to make for the big companies to make these big profits. Continue with the next steps in the life cycle of coltan. We see the global trade and the electronic companies, where these materials are obtained with the these capacitors are made for producing the electronics we use. So most of the production of coltan from the mines, from the country we saw before, are being sold to companies in the United States. We see also companies in Germany and Kazakhstan. The processing of coltan requires the refining the coltan to obtain the tantalum and the niobium, and this requires a mixture of hydrofluoric and sulfuric acids and really high temperatures. This means water pollution, and this also means the production or the burning of fossil fuels and production of CO2 released to the atmosphere. Of course, this is greenhouse gases. Some other materials are derived from coltan and are obtained from coltan, and from now on I'm going to cover only the tantalum, because this is where the capacitors are. This is the material used for capacitors, so I'm going to analyze this. In addition to these countries I mentioned before who process the coltan, we also see the production of these electronics, these tantalum capacitors, in China, South Korea, and the other countries like Germany and the United States. Then most of these capacitors are sold to or are shipped to China, where most of the electronics, like the cell phones, are being assembled. Of course, we know that most of these electronics manufactured in China have produced an economic growth for this country, but due to unclear environmental policies, China has experienced increased pollution, and this came along with a lot of problems for the people, the health of the people, because they are now experiencing a lot of lung diseases. We have also heard about the labor conflicts in China, things like slavery and unfair distribution of the money and these kind of things. Then after the cell phones are produced in China, they are shipped all over the world. Everybody in the world has a cell phone now. Everybody, literally everybody. In 2014, more cell phone subscriptions existed than people in the world. And if we think that we are 7 billion people in the world, and we use a lot of cell phones, we replace our cell phones almost every year, we can imagine the amount of materials that are in these cell phones and other electronics. Advertising, social pressures are occurring all over the world, and those things make us replace our cell phones too frequently. And this is a problem because, of course, new materials will be required, and most of the time we replace our cell phones, even though our old cell phones were perfectly working and had a really long life ahead. If we talk about the waste, the disposal of the old cell phones, it's also happening all over the world. There are landfills with cell phones all over the world, and some countries are receiving, some third world countries or developing countries are receiving the cell phones from developed countries because we need developed countries need somewhere else to put their waste. Luckily, it is possible to recycle tantalum, and not only tantalum, but most of the materials in the cell phones are recyclable, and also they are reusable and they are expensive. So there's a lot of interest in recycling these kind of things. Electronic recycling is happening also all over the world, and 20% of the tantalum in the world today is coming from recycled electronics. However, the low prices of tantalum or of coltan obtained from the mines will keep these things going because the raw material prices are lower than those obtained from recycling. So unfortunately, this is going to continue, and as we can see here, different stakeholders are involved in different stages of the production of these electronic goods. We can see that in the early stages, local miners and local traders receive most of the impacts. However, they are the weakest elements in this, or the weakest stakeholders in this production. Governments, authorities like the army or the police, local authorities, and also international agencies are really trying to solve some of these problems, but it's really hard because some of these mining sites are in really isolated areas where law enforcement is really hard. So the United Nations have established regulations not only for coltan but for other materials since 1967, and the US government, the Dodd-Frank Act of 2010, that was signed by the President Barack Obama, required all the coltan in the United States, purchased in the United States, to be conflict-free. However, we have seen that most of these companies are outsourcing to companies in other countries to go around these regulations. So unfortunately, the reduction of conflict minerals in the world produced a reduction of the Congolese coltan, but at that point in 2010, the market for coltan in Rwanda arose. So that's why it's very likely that the coltan produced by Rwanda comes from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Also, as we saw before, other countries like Colombia and Venezuela are now producing coltan, even though it's still in small amounts. And we can see that some other countries have also conflicts. It's not only the conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Of course, the coltan is not the only responsible for the conflicts in Congo or other countries. Even though there was a reduction in the extraction of coltan there, the conflicts are still present and were present even before coltan was a prevalent production over there. I'm from Colombia, so I think Colombia is a case of concern because South America possesses the largest reserves of coltan in the world. Illegal mining is happening there in really isolated areas, and these areas, like a national park, the Puinahua National Park, are really really important because they protect not only the forest but the water resources, and even indigenous people, indigenous communities that have been isolated for a really long time. This is people that have no previous contact with the Western civilization are being affected by this. So it's a new slavery happening in Colombia, and these people are forced into mining because they have nothing else to do, and they are facing people with guns, and it's not easy for them. They are having a really hard time now because of this. In Colombia, we have had an internal war for more than 60 years now, and we have guerrillas and the paramilitaries and the drug cartels that are taking advantage of these illegal processes. So this is why Colombia is a case of concern, because we don't want to have a huge problem that like the problem we saw in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Of course, people in the big cities in Colombia don't even realize what's going on over there. And one of my objectives with this project is to bring awareness among a lot of people in Colombia, and of course in other places too. So, using system thinking, we can find what's wrong with the current process, and we can try to find some solutions. The current process includes extraction and production of waste. It's a straight line, and the byproducts are, of course, the advances in technology and the big profits, which are not entirely bad. They are good, but the negative externalities include profits for only a few people. We have civil wars, we have inequality, health issues, social issues, and environmental damage. So the problem is that we have an straight line. It's extractive and waste intensive, and all the externalities we just saw. And solutions for this, we can have stronger regulations, we have better design and manufacture of electronics, we have improved recycling, and a reduction in the demand. So instead of having a straight line, we can find cycles. We can have feedback loops that allow us to close the cycles, to reduce the impacts and the externalities, especially the negative externalities of the production of coltan, the tantalum, and the use of cell phones. So we can find things like from the landfills, we can have recycling. The final user can also do recycling, and we can have feedback loops that improve the impacts of the production of cell phones and the use of cell phones and other technological goods. All these processes will reduce the stress on the mining sites, so we can reduce the impacts at the mining sites and still have some local trade, including the people who will do the recycling and all of these processes to complete the cycles. Well, people usually ask, what can I do? What can I do if I'm far away from the mining sites? I'm far away from the conflict. It doesn't have to do with me. So my message here is that it has to do with everyone. Technology is great. I'm not against technology, and I'm actually happy I can use technology to share my message. Technology makes our life easier. Not all the time, but that's the idea. But we must become responsible consumers. We must reduce the amount of resources we use. We can reduce our carbon footprint because we know that our world is not unlimited. We have a limited world, and we must make informed choices and make good consumer decisions to improve the way we live, and this way we can improve the way other people live in other places in the world. We are not alone in this world, and sooner or later our bad decisions will come back to us in a bad way. We are now seeing climate change, we are seeing extreme weathers, and we are being impacted by extreme weather, even though we are far away from those areas where we thought those things happened before. So the conclusions of my project are that the demand of coltan has increased in the last 2 decades and will increase with new technologies, and this will require more raw materials. We have learned lessons from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and we don't want these things to happen in other countries like Colombia. And of course we know that coltan is not the cause of these problems, but its exploitation and trade are fueling war and inequality. So we are not doing very well in the environmental and equity sides of sustainability. Current regulations are not enough to solve the existing issues. We have learned lessons also from other minerals like gold, and we can apply these things to improve the way we produce things. We know that the highest impacts of the life cycle of coltan occurs near the mining sites, And the externalities, the negative externalities, are affecting the most vulnerable and helpless of the stakeholders. Again, information and consumer choices can help relieve the situations. Information is all over the place, all over the world, is readily available to all of us, and we can no longer say we didn't know about this. So now we all know what's in our pockets, and we must act accordingly. Thank you.